Warriors. Today, I present to you two exquisite warriors, and I mean that. Tammy Toney-Butler and also Dr. Fran Bononeri are joining us. We are going to talk about so many different subjects today, primarily focused on health, healthcare, hospitals, nurses, and I want Tammy and Dr. Fran to introduce themselves because they have a world of knowledge, experience. They are at the forefront. They created Nurses United Against Human Trafficking in 2020, and they are here to share all about what is going on healthcare landscape. So welcome, warriors, to our program today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Of course. Now, Tammy, let's start with you. Introduce yourself and what you would like our viewers, our listeners to know about you.
Hi, I'm Tammy Toney-Butler. I am a sexual assault nurse examiner, a forensic examiner. I was an ER nurse bedside for over 30 years. I specialize and did specialize in trauma. I also have a healing ministry. I work directly with survivors of human trafficking, adults and adolescents, and adults and their children on their journeys to heal. I'm a survivor of sex trafficking. And I also am the co-founder of Nurses United Against Human Trafficking with Fran. Her and I have been laboring on this. We did, form this in 2020, and then we recently incorporated it in 2022. And we are two women on a mission to bring about change in the healthcare sector. With regards to this hidden, invisible population, this marginalized population that we are not identifying and servicing and providing them or offering them restoration and resources as we as nurses are called to do.
Excellent. Dr. Fran, as I like to call you. Do you like that when I call you Dr.
Yes,
Fran?
Or,
I don't know. I just love saying Dr. Fran. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I just love that. Well, come on, introduce yourself. Your turn.
Yes. So I am Dr. Francine Bononeri, or better known as Dr. Fran by Lynn. I am a registered nurse and pediatric nurse practitioner. I have been in the nursing profession for over 30 years now. I am currently an academic nurse educator, and I am the co-founder of Nurses United Against Human Trafficking. I do have a lot of leadership experience. I was one of the directors at large for the American Nurses Association for the state of New York, as well as the current immediate past president of the Long Island chapter of NAPNAP, which the acronym represents National Association of Pediatric Nurse Practitioners. So thank you, Lynn. It's such an honor to be here.
Oh, enough with the thanks. We got to get to the information for our warriors. They have to learn. Tammy, let's start with you. Of course, please feel free, jump in, Dr. Fran, whatever. We're all friends here. Why did you start Nurses United Against Human Trafficking?
Well, I spoke at the American Nurses Association General Assembly in 2019, a good 6 months before COVID hit. And they adopted all of my resolutions on human trafficking, specifically with healthcare providers, even to form a national task force, only to see nothing from them, no effort. Nothing has come from that, where my resolutions were adopted, which you can find that background document on the Nurses United Against Human Trafficking webpage, www.nuaht.org. And basically, I realized that we have to tackle this movement. For many, many years, individuals have been talking, putting out study after study after study, how we as healthcare providers must realize this public health crisis of human trafficking that we find ourselves in today. But I don't think people truly are grasping the gravity of the situation, the sense of urgency, and how this is affecting our economy. It's affecting our gross healthcare expenditures. And it's something that is overwhelming our already overwhelmed healthcare resources, our nursing shortage, many things that we have a tool in our tool chest to tackle. But I don't know if individuals are just very overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. Yes. But Fran and I know where to start. We know where to go, and we can help you in this movement to screen, and identify and build a targeted response to human trafficking within your healthcare organization. And it is time now, much like in the 1980s, when HIV and AIDS was a problem, no one knew how to act. We, dressed up in spacesuits and cared for those individuals, and no one knew the path forward. But then with the passage of the Ryan, White Act and legislative initiatives and different things, we were able to take, HIV AIDS from a fatal condition to a chronic condition. Right. And we must act now as nurses, as healthcare providers, to do the same for survivors of human trafficking and human smuggling.
Wow. I want both of you to know that I will have everything in the body of this video, the website, all your contact information, things you have both written. So that's going to be all in there for everybody to easily research, because we want to make everything easy for everybody, because it is so dark. It is so overwhelming, right? So I think people just stay away until it happens, perhaps to somebody in their family, to themselves. So we want to intervene and give them some protections. Now, Dr. Fran, you two warriors met up. What happened? How did you two meet? Do you want to go into that? You met here in New York? Or...
I would love to tell you. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much for asking. It's actually
and anything
an amazing
I ask,
story.
if you don't want to answer, just go on to whatever you want to talk about.
Very good. No, we're very open and honest here. Absolutely. Thank you. So I, at the time, was one of the directors at large for the American Nurses Association for the state of New York. And as a member of the board of directors, I had gone to the membership assembly of 2019 in Washington, where Tammy had presented. And I will tell you, Lynn, I have been in the nursing profession at this point now for 30 years. And one of the most profound moments in my nursing career was sitting at membership assembly of 2019 and hearing Tammy get up to speak. I worked as a bedside nurse for a good portion of the beginning of my career. And then I ended up getting my master's from NYU. And I worked as a pediatric nurse practitioner in the pediatric ICU, excuse me. And then I had children, and I was blessed to be a stay-at-home mom for a while. And then probably it's about 8 years now that I went back. I actually went into academia. And so I became a clinical instructor at first. And being that my background's pediatrics, I had taken my students to one of the facilities, one of numerous facilities, but this one in particular that I'm speaking of, we were there in the fall of 2018. And there was this 16-year-old patient who had come in, female, and something just didn't sit right with me, Lynn. I won't get into all the specifics. She was brought in for a cellulitis, very significant cellulitis, which is is a skin infection, but hers was very significant. And to this day, I just beat myself up over it, really. She was covered from head to toe with skin infections. She had lice. She had IV drug track marks all over her body. And there was this gentleman who was sitting with her. Clean cut, well-dressed, well-spoken, I'd say in his mid to late 20s. And I'm saying, but where is the connection? I don't understand. Who is this person to her? And she was brought in by the paramedics. She was seen in the ER by the attendings, the residents, the nurses. She was admitted to the floor, seen by the attending, the residents, the nurses. No one recognized that she was a victim of human trafficking, and that was her trafficker sitting right there. And it wasn't until membership assembly of 2019, again, I'm so embarrassed to say, that when I sat there listening to her, I felt like I was hit by a Mack truck. I'm still getting the chills just thinking about it now, because that moment was so profound. And I said, oh my gosh, she was trafficked and her trafficker was sitting right there. And this is the problem, Lynn.
Yes.
Over 80% of victims who are in the life are seen by healthcare professionals and are missed. And we know that these numbers are underrepresented. How can we actually have that type of accurate data? And I swore that I was going to do everything in my power to prevent that. from ever happening again. Because, Lynn, what we're looking at are two populations. We have our pre-licensure nurses that are in nursing school, and then we have those that are already licensed. The ones that are licensed, as I was, we get to pick and choose our professional development topics. So say, for instance, I wanted to focus on CMV or perhaps cystic fibrosis or something like that. I have that autonomy to do that. Now, just getting into that, that's a whole different topic that I'll discuss in a minute. But when we look at our nursing students, and it has been mentioned time and time again, we have to get it into undergraduate curriculum. We have to get it into undergraduate curriculum. In fact, the ICN, which is the International Council of Nurses, their 2019 Congress, there was a plenary session specifically on raising awareness of human trafficking, and we have to get it into undergraduate curriculum. I don't think that that's happened yet. And so why is it still taking so incredibly long? Once we have them in our four walls of academia, we can hold them accountable for the content that they need to know. So that's why it is so critical to get it into that undergraduate curriculum so that we know we are arming them with this knowledge. We are not expecting them to be subject matter experts. We are wanting that those red flags are visible. We have like that spidey sense sometimes where our, the hairs on the back of our neck stand up and go, this just isn't right. Like it was with me, but I didn't know what it was. So we need them to recognize, understand how to intervene, who to call, and how services can be provided. Now, we understand that under the age of 18, it falls under mandatory reporting guidelines. And so they have to mandatorily report. But when we look at these nurses that are already licensed, and I had mentioned to you on our the talk show that we did last week, there are over 4 million. And if you include LPNs and certified nursing assistants, that number is up to 5.3 million.
Wow.
Yes, significant. We have power in numbers. There's no doubt about it. But when we look at those that are already licensed, in order to really enforce and make sure that they are getting this content, there has to be statutes. There have to be laws in place that is regulating their professional development. When I tell you, I was appalled when I actually found the statistics. So I just want to make sure that I'm saying this properly. According to the white paper by Jones Day, as of July of this year, 2020, there are 37 states that have no regulations or statutes pertaining to anti-trafficking education of healthcare providers. 37.
I mean, it's beyond shocking.
States.
I'm speechless, and I don't.
As of July of 2022, right?
It's right.
That's right.
It's yesterday. It's right now.
Last
and
month.
Again, I want to point out, this is current information. There's a lot of old information out there about trafficking and things with healthcare and trafficking, sexual exploitation. So this is just, right now. And this is a shocking. I am all about action. I think we all are, right? That's what the Warriors is. And I'm tired of the just reaction. This should be something where we should be having marches in Washington. And I don't care if it's just a visual, of 1 million nurses, 2 million, right? Healthcare providers descending upon DC. The media doesn't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. I don't understand any of that. But let's leave that for a minute, because I'm still in shock about the 37 states. It's beyond comprehension, because we're also pushing at the Warriors K through 12 education in the school systems. And that's falling on a lot of deaf ears. I just want to say accountability. It's like with big tech right now, and we'll touch upon that in a minute, but there's no accountability, right, for what's going on with kids online, to break it down, to make it very simple. The same thing with this. There's no accountability. So why should anybody step up unless we create laws, we create policy, and we get the public involved? Now, I want to go back to saying something about Tammy. Tammy, the first time I heard you talk I said to myself, I have to get to know this woman. My heart broke. I literally cried after hearing Tammy speak. It was an emotional moving I had, which helped me to be more of a warrior. So I just want to thank you, Tammy, for when you shared the first time I heard you speak and you shared your story and who you are and what you do now. It really was a game changer for me in wanting me to do bigger, to do better, to focus on the real work, the real advocates in this whole, for lack of a better word, movement. And that right now is Nurses United Against Human Trafficking. So Tammy, explain, okay, somebody looks at the website. They see, oh, okay, I'm a director of a hospital, or I'm a nurse, or what should they do? They reach out to you directly. Let's just give them a few ideas, because I believe like people are scared to make the move or something. So how are we going to get in there? Other than we're going to start promoting Nurses United Against Human Trafficking. We're going to start spreading the word. We're going to start getting in there to snowball this whole movement, which is much needed. You just heard Dr. Fran, everybody say 37 states. Criminal, national emergency. Tell us, Tammy, what, if somebody looks at the website, what do you want them to focus on and how can they take action on there? I know it sounds like a simple question, but people always tell me like, yeah, I read that, or I'm afraid to call. What do you tell them?
Well, there's a multifaceted answer here. First of all, I want to thank you for your kind words and Fran.
Of course.
And what Fran won't tell you, she critiqued my first PowerPoint and actually has been my peer reviewer editor on my PowerPoints ever since, because, you know, I do struggle with technology. Although I love it, I struggle with it. So she won't tell you that. She's being very gracious and humble.
That Dr. Fran.
Everybody who knows me knows that, you know, God set me free from the chains that bound me. And I'm on a mission for us to see those that are still bound. And I'm not talking about wrists on their hands. I'm not talking about wrists on their legs. It's not like the movie Taken. It's those that are psychologically bound to a trafficker, to a controller. Those individuals that can recruit a child in less than 8 days and have them meet them off of a social media platform. We must rein in big tech. We must look at these virtual street corners that are affecting our children. And our children are being affected because we are giving our children cell phones or a device and putting it in their bedroom. So we've now just brought the predator into their bedroom. We are mass producing victims at a scale that we cannot handle. We cannot handle that with the numerous toll that it takes on the body, the psychological manifestations of trauma, the multi-systems that it affects, the damage that is done takes years. You know, individuals who are in the life and like myself, who have been made to be sex slaves, we have complex PTSD at the extent of war veterans, because we have, you know, been at war and our bodies have been affected in our minds. And the road to healing, the pathway to healing, it's different for everyone. It can take us years and years, and I'm still not completely whole. I'm still learning, and the survivors I work with, they help me as well. You know, we kind of have a tribe to where we stick together, but we process the things that have happened to us. So I think that when we realize that this is affecting every aspect of the healthcare community, this is contributing to our emergency department visits of our adolescents for suicidality, for behavioral health issues, for anger issues. It's affecting our school systems. It is affecting every aspect of our prison systems. When we look at recidivism rates, when we look at our sexual assaults, and that's what this is. It's the raping of children. And let's call it that instead of calling it a lot of times child molestation. A lot of this, like me, we're hidden victims of human trafficking with this familial component, and it is child rape. And when you've been raped as a child, your psyche's been raped as a child, and you know, our mind, body, and spirit are affected. This is contributing. You know, child maltreatment costs the economy $428 billion annually. That is contributing to our gross healthcare expenditures, which are expected to be something like, I think, $5.6 trillion in just a few years, if not more. it's contributing to us as taxpayers. There are studies directly linking childhood sexual assault in women to a hardening or narrowing of the arteries later in life, and they're having early strokes, early heart attacks. So we have to understand trauma. We have to look at the cost benefits of trauma-informed care and a public health approach and our return on investment. If we invest in holistic healing, if we screen for human trafficking, if we identify these victims and offer them a pathway to be identified, to get resources, then we can stop the bleeding and the downstream negative effects that's affecting our economy. So, we know the way. I know the way. And with Nurses United Against Human Trafficking, reach out to us. We'll be happy to come to your organization, put protocols in place. I've been, I'm a forensic examiner. So I've responded to hospitals locally who tell me they've been trained. They tell me that they screen for human trafficking. And yet I got called because it was missed. There was a particular client that was at more than one of these institutions, and she was missed in every step of her journey. And we have to do better. We aren't identifying them if they're minors. We aren't mandatory reporting, and we are negligent. We are negligent because we must offer them resources. It is child abuse. So we are saying that we don't care as healthcare providers that children are being raped and abused because we aren't identifying it. And if we say we are, I can clearly tell you a lot of the institutions, the very few that do have protocols, and I applaud them for having a protocol and for screening, they aren't identifying because every training is not the same.
Yes.
Individuals are training healthcare providers, but yet they're not trained and not skilled within the nuances of being a nurse, being a medical student, of knowing exactly how to train and how to identify, because healthcare providers speak a different language, just as survivors of trauma. So we have to screen, we have to do things appropriately. I have actually created a response to human trafficking to where forensic nurse examiners or sexual assault nurse examiners are called if there's a high index of suspicion. And we are the ones that come in and we interview. We're the ones that screen so that we don't already overburdened healthcare system. Nurses have 6, 7, 8 patients. They don't have the time to sit with these individuals, to create a trusting environment, an environment where the individual's not rushed and they're your number one priority and their Maslow's basic needs are taken care of. So we come in, we do a response, and we decide what happens. And we actually are consulted. So you just put in an order, you put in a consult, we come. We've already established a community response to where we work hand in hand with task forces, with Homeland Security investigations or the FBI or whomever. And we have completely a wraparound layer of support where only trauma-informed, trauma-responsive police officers come and respond, and we do, so that we do not re-victimize these victims, and then we have a higher likelihood of them wanting to seek resources. So on our website, if you go, you can fill out a form. You can also join us with membership. We are a professional association like the ANA, ENA. Fran knows all the acronyms. So we are a professional association. You can join us, and with our membership, we are able to provide case studies. We are still building some of the content. We have a training video, a curriculum, Human Trafficking 101, 102, 103, and 104 that we have available to roll out. We are ready to go. We are ready to come into your institution. We are ready to equip. We are ready to do what needs to be done. And just in essence of full disclosure, half of the membership royalties that come in are going to go directly to my faith-based healing ministry, Reflective Spaces Ministry, where I work directly with survivors of human trafficking and their children. And it is going to help supply their basics needs. And we have a free food bank. There's many things that we have to assist their needs. So the money does go, half of it, directly into the hands of survivors to even offer scholarships just to help them succeed.
Yes. And if I can just add, Lynn, it's just like you said, and just echoing what Tammy said, we have to stop plugging the holes of the dam. it is becoming overwhelming. We can't plug the holes anymore. We
Doesn't
just
work.
have to
It just doesn't
rebuild.
work. Right.
That's right. We just have to rebuild the whole dam. We have to be much more proactive. And you know what? Just having the nurses aware, having that recognition, just like Tammy said, as long as it is escalated and that a call is put in and that the proper people are notified, you are talking then preventative measures.
Yes.
Because what happens is when they go to the authorities, this is like a spiral, a downward spiral then, because investigations are conducted and you can end up taking down networks and organizations that are behind the human trafficking propaganda at a certain location, and so you're not only helping the survivor, but you are preventing future survivors from being victims. And so it's really, it's just a matter of being proactive. And just as Tammy said, just jump on our website. That's NUAHT.org. We actually have a consulting page that you can just click on to see the different types of services that we provide in terms of having someone be a speaker and to inform their population on human trafficking, whatever particular healthcare profession that is. We also have that service that we could come into your institution and put policies and protocols in place. There's just an open field where you can supply your name, phone number, email address, and the reason for sending this this email, and we will respond. Absolutely. It's just, it's overwhelming. And
Excellent. I'm
we
tired
just
of,
need
I'm
some-
tired
yeah.
of the Band-Aid warriors, you know,
Yes.
I'm tired of, we need to, as you said, reconstruct this whole thing, a ground up, because
Yeah.
none of it's working. And Tammy,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up about your work, your direct work with survivors and having a spot for them to come to, or, you know, with their children, because right here, I'm in New York City, and law enforcement will say to me, hey, we don't have anywhere to put them. We don't have anywhere to bring them. We don't have, that's another program. You know, we don't have places, right? How sad is this? So we commend you, Tammy, for really providing a space. And we want to have lots of ranches in my warrior mind, you know, across the United States, right? Like that's the way I envision it. We need a place for these people. And the other thing is, a lot of people say to me, oh, well, this doesn't affect me, you know, because I talk nonstop about these issues of human trafficking. As you both pointed out, it affects each and every one of us. We pay taxes.
That's right.
All of that escalation of, I'm sorry, there's like a gnat. There's a gnat after me as we, so excuse my arm doing that. You know, it filters down into our costs for healthcare and into our pocketbook. And when I say that, then they kind of, and I think I got all that information from you, Tammy, originally when I started talking about it. Yes, I took it from you. They'll be like, oh, because they don't even understand that it affects each and every one of us in our communities. And
it affects deductibles. It affects everything.
It affects everything. And they're not. And they're not understanding this is also a national security threat.
Yeah.
That we have so much, for instance, the unchecked border right now, right? Bringing in to date, they say 2 million, but I'm told that's the count they have. So it could very well be 4 million. See, we're not hearing about this. These are just some of my sources that share information with me. Yeah. And so all of these people, and we can't blame the majority of them for wanting to come, right? Because they tell me when I talk to people, they really think our streets are paved with gold here. That's what they tell me. And they live in such poverty. Who could blame a mother for trying to get away, right? And do better with her children. So that we have all of that pressing into each and every community. Because not only, we just had a couple of buses, every day they're here in New York. See, the media doesn't tell you. I see when I'm out walking, unmarked buses on 57th Street unloading people with Red Cross bags. Who are these people, right? But eventually all these people, it won't just be Chicago, New York, San Francisco. It will be, they will farm them, and they are doing this into each and every community, whether it's Pennsylvania, more into Florida. It's going to affect all of us, all of these issues. So people have to get on board. Now, Dr. Fran,
yes.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. I am so concerned right now about our youth mental health, because there was an advisory put out by the current administration in December 2021, Dr. Vivek H. Murthy, okay? And it seems to really have fallen on deaf ears. And then I'm reading recently with all this legalization of the cannabis, for instance, like here in New York, that the kids, even though it's, we're told it's for adults, the kids, of course, get their hands on everything. It is unregulated. They're packaging things in pretty rainbow colors and horses and ponies, and the kids, of course, can get their hands on anything. And then I had a study come across that I looked into where college kids now, their depression in the last 8 years is in excess of 135%.
Yeah.
And so all this overwhelming, also we want to intervene, right? Less victims, right? What are your thoughts? What can you share with us on all of this? If a parent is listening, or a caregiver, a grandma, grandpa, let's break it down for them, because again, people can't handle. It's like so much going on. It's like getting hit with a hammer every day over the head.
Yes.
What do you want to suggest to them? Let's swerve a little bit, go into that, because they're seeking answers, or they're seeking a take action or a way to talk to their child, teen, and even kids in college, the college campuses. I did my newsletter yesterday, and I was talking with law enforcement, and they brought to my attention kids recruiting kids in schools is escalating. And we are not even, and I kind of knew about it, but I never really thought too much or focused on it. So we have kids as young as 10 recruiting other children. So there's this whole thing going on. The kids are the currency, right? I say there is a war on for our children. They're the money makers. Give the listeners, the viewers, some thoughts. How can you break that down? So maybe take actions, how they can talk to the kids.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking, Lynn. It's really become a problem that is so overwhelming. There have been studies that showed that youth depression was already up 40% pre-COVID. And now after COVID, it is exponential. And so there are a couple of different tactics. First and foremost is really having those open lines of communication with our children. We need to be able to sit down and have them discuss openly and honestly with us, and us providing a very non-judgmental, this reciprocal type of conversation. The other thing is, and by no means listen, I am a nurse practitioner, so clearly I support Western medicine, and I support that there are pharmacological agents that are needed at times. But what we also need to look at are other tactics that can be more holistic, that still have a powerful impact. And so there was this study conducted in 2018, and I actually made some notes so that I'm speaking properly. Harvard analyzed longitudinal data. And when we say longitudinal, that means over an extended period of time, from people that were taking part in a study, the long-term nurses health study 2, and its next generation, which was the Growing Up Today study, or the acronym was GUTS. The sample sizes ranged anywhere from about 5,600 to about 7,600, with the average baseline age being approximately 14 years of age. So we are capturing youth. There were 8 to 14 years of follow-up. They were interested in whether the frequency with which a youth attended religious services with their parents, or prayed and had that prayerful meditation on their own, was correlated with their health and mental health. The results suggested associations of frequent religious participation in adolescence with greater subsequent psychological well-being, character strengths, and lower risks of mental illness and severe health behaviors. Additionally, they found reduced probabilities of drug use, early initiation of sexual activity among those religiously observant adolescents, and also consistent with results from other studies that had been conducted on religion and forgiveness. They found a positive association of religious involvement with forgiveness in early life and less depressive symptoms. We have become a very self-centered society.
Mhm.
I believe just from the social media that you see, the posts, there are so many selfies. We are focusing on ourself. And what this study was illustrating is that when we focus on God, that higher power in our lives, and not focus on ourselves, there are a lot more positive qualities that emerge. There are a lot less depressive symptoms. There is forgiveness. There is that human interaction where we empathize with our fellow man. And the current platform of social media today, and I think that I am preaching to the choir here when I'm speaking to you, it has so negatively impacted the youth of today.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has become an addiction, as we had spoken
Yes.
about. These children from the age of 8 to 18 are on their devices upwards of 10, 11, 12 hours a day. They are completely molding and shaping our children. And just referring back to Dr. Albert Schweitzer, where he said example is not the main thing, it is the only thing. We, as caregivers, as healthcare professionals, we need to set the example. We need to serve as the role models. So you know what? If parents are excessively using their devices as well, then try not to do it in front of your children. Give that time to your children to interact with them. And so they are not constantly seeing you, us, or whoever on their devices, because we are serving as role models. And we can serve as positive role models or as negative role models. And at their age, they are really too young to recognize that a negative behavior is not something that should be translated into adulthood as they grow, because they are seeing that behavior perhaps in that caregiver. And so with us being on devices, the kids are just thinking it's natural. Well, mom's on it, or, auntie, or whatever the familial arrangement is. And so we really need to set the example. So I hope that provided some insight.
I will say amen to that because, because I always say that we need to make our kids today our partners in everything, right? And I've had parents say, "Oh, I'm embarrassed. I can't bring it up." And I'm like, well, you have to, because if you're handing your 8-year-old a phone and you haven't discussed anything age appropriate, if you haven't put safety features and filters on, there are phones that are strictly for calling and texting.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have the internet. But I want to go stronger on parents have to stop it. Again, this is a whole nother program. But when everybody's documenting every time they go somewhere, every dinner they eat, and creating these fake scenarios, we know how this also leads into these fake lifestyles that people perceive, or children especially I'm talking about right now. Oh, her life is so great. His life is so great. Adding into all this depression and suicide. It has to stop, because I'm going to say it again. The kids are the currency, because people will always say every day, why is this happening? Money. It's always about money. That is the bottom boring line. Everybody can make money off of everything. So why stop it, right? There's no accountability. That goes for the entertainment landscape. That goes for literary. It's all about making money off of the kids, and the adults. There is no other way. Have to really start stepping up. I'm going to have to say, I'm going to have to start blaming them. I'm going to have to because they cannot. How many times have you been in a restaurant and you look at another table and all the kids are on devices?
Yeah.
Right? How many times in New York when I walk, I'm like, oh, I'm surprised there aren't crashes constantly. People either driving with the device in their hand or walking on the sidewalk looking. They're not looking. So parents have to be caregivers. I say it's a whole family unit. We all have to step up, right, in our own homes and communities and start addressing all of this.
Yes.
Tammy, I want to ask you now, how can people help you at the ranch? What do you need? How can we participate?
Well, let me go back and piggyback back off of what you and Fran said on what we were just discussing and the mental health. It is estimated that 1 in 5 children experience a mental health disorder in a given year, and an estimated $247 billion a year is spent on treatment and management of childhood mental disorders alone. And that was data put out in 2021 from the CDC. Technology facilitated coercive control, breeding grounds of hate, are shaping and molding a generation in society. We have taken God out of everything,
Right.
out of religion, out of our schools, out of our government, every single aspect.
It's a bad word now, right? The
Yes.
censorship is unbelievable.
Mhm.
And yet, social media and the internet and these platforms are raising a generation of children. And they're also, raising individuals who want to be seen. And that's why it's contributing even to these mass shootings. And I think that we have to have the uncomfortable conversation of legislation like the Earn It Act, HR 6544 and S 3538. We have to push for this legislation to rein in big tech and to look at Section CDA 230 and its original intent, which you can look at the America's Brief by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and realize that CDA 230 was never meant for these tech companies to be able to hide behind it in the capacity they are today. So we have to go after this particular piece of legislation. We have to notify our members of Congress. You can click on the videos that are on your sites, Lynn, on ours, that Rick Lane and other warriors in the fight have embedded technology that lets you immediately, send messages to your senators and to your House of Representatives. We have to step up. We have to let them know that we've had enough. We want our children protected. We don't care about the lined pockets of individuals who are contributing from the social disruption and the lives of our children as we mass produce these victims and individuals who, in that moment, when you are touched, when your innocence is taken, you're not the same.
Right.
And help me help others from going through what I went through. Trauma destroyed my entire family. My father died by suicide. He was a police officer. We buried him on Father's Day when I was like 15. My mom died an early death from her childhood, and all that went wrong there. We have to realize adverse childhood experiences, the role that they're playing, and the social media aspect in all of this. And we have to put preventative measures in place, just like belts in cars. And so I want you guys to help me stop mass producing victims, because we don't have enough safe houses. We don't have enough mental health hospitals. We don't have enough resources for what is happening right now. And it is going to bankrupt this economy. We have to get this in place now. And we are poised at a moment in history where we must act, and we must act now. So that is what you can do for me, so that we don't need ranches everywhere. But to answer that question, you can go to my website, www.reflectivespacesministry.com, and you can help me create reflective spaces. You can help me, even a donation of $5 to our ministry. I mean, I sold everything and followed God. I live in a tiny house, 576 square feet. I even sold my sailboat and everything. So I'm actually living what I'm preaching. And what I'm just wanting you to see when you give these individuals love, when you give them acceptance, and that's everybody, LGBTQI, everybody's welcome on my land. I don't stop the love. I love everyone. And I just want to help them process the dark so that they can find the light. And by, helping us and donating to my ministry, you can help me provide a scholarship for someone who's trying to get through nursing school, who needs help. I have a survivor now that and other survivors I work with that are trying to better themselves. And I would love to be able to help with some of their educational needs. We try to give them their Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs, their food, transportation, so that they can come to the ranch. so that we can just create these holistic environments. We created almost like a park for survivors where it's safe and you can just come kayak or fish and just be in nature in one of our reflective spots and just within a group deal with the trauma. And you know, we are seeing magnificent results. Individuals who've been labeled with all these, you know, ADHD and bipolar and all this stuff, like I was, when you break the trauma off, I mean, I sleep like a baby. I don't need sleeping pills. I don't need anything. And I've already lost 50 pounds because my trauma is being dealt with. So when we deal with a holistic angle of it, we bring God back into it in faith and just deal with the spirit, which is wounded and raped as well, then you will see a paramount change throughout the country, the nation, and the world, and it will resonate for the betterment of all of us involved.
Yes. And Lynn,
Thank
that's
you,
why
Tammy.
I was going to say, that's why we really applaud you as well for having those grassroots efforts and raising awareness. The parents, the caregivers, they need to know what they are up against. They need to know what their child is doing on those devices. They need to make sure that those parental parameters are put in place. We can't just give those devices to the kids. And again, leaving them on there for so many hours. We have to also take accountability. We need to know what they are doing. And I'm sure that there are children who are going to rebel and say, well, it's my phone, but we have to put our foot down and be the caretaker. We are the parent, and we need to know what you are doing because we love you and we want to protect you. We want to keep you safe. And so these are conversations that need to be had, not only with, again, raising the awareness so that the parents, caregivers are understanding what they're up against and just filtering that down to the kids at an age appropriate level and say, this is why mommy's doing that. This is why grandpa's doing that. Whoever, again, whatever the familial situation is. It's imperative. It's imperative.
No, it's an American crisis, I call it right now, that we take care of this. I'm glad, Tammy, you brought up the Earn It Act, you know, because it's twofold. It's this boots on the ground, our grassroots community, right, at home. And it's also the other part of it is working on enforcing laws, which are not enforced, in my opinion, and creating new policy and legislation. I always say that handing these devices to your children, it's like opening your front door and welcoming in all the strangers. I use this analogy because people seem to understand it, and you would never do that. You would never be in a parking lot of a supermarket, hold up your phone and say, here's my 12-year-old daughter to a bunch of strangers. But why is the mindset that we allow this to infiltrate our kids' lives? There's a new study out, 85%, so we know it's always higher. Parents admit to using devices as babysitters. 68% have no idea. They've never looked. They don't know what the kids are doing online. And 1 in 4 children online are approached with sexual dialogue or images they believe to be an adult. Of those, 25% will go out in real time and meet that stranger. So if, as a parent or a grandparent, caregiver, teacher, if I heard this is shocking. So we have to get at this with the kids and intervene and take care of our victims and survivors now and protect. We don't want new ones.
Correct.
Kind of thing. Final thoughts, Tammy. What are you thinking?
I would say Jan Edwards with Paving the Way Foundation has an amazing curriculum that she goes into the schools. She talks to the children, and I would check out her website. The link is on our Nurses United page.
And I'll add that here too as well.
Okay, perfect. And also, let's take the devices, and when we charge them at night, charge them in the parent's bedroom. Let's take them out of the kids' room at certain hours so that you know that they're not going to be using them to communicate with a stranger. You know, everybody on social media, everybody's talking about zip ties and duct tape and the movie Taken. Most human trafficking is not like that. Sure, there's probably a scenario out there of the, you know, of someone being taken, yes, and with a chain, but it's not like that. Human trafficking is people you know, just like child sexual abuse. A lot of times it's people you're letting in your inner circle. It's a quote boyfriend. It's someone it's a friend. It's someone
Right.
that you know. And they are preying upon a weakness that is in your life at that moment of vulnerability, and they are exploiting it. They are master manipulators and controllers. And we put our entire life on social media. So if we get those devices and charge them in the parents' bedroom at night, if we, put in the safeguards that are in place that NetSmarts and other organizations recommend, and Protect Young Eyes, Chris McKenna's organization, and others. If we do those things, if we help, put legislation in place like COSA and I think it's COPPA,
Papa.
and the Earn It Act, if we become proactive, we are so reactionary.
Right.
We cannot anymore be reactionary to our children. These are God's children. They need to be protected. We have to step up as a nation, as a world, and be proactive. We have to prevent this damage. We have to rein in big tech, and we have to move forward now. The urgency, the onus is to act now, because we have to be able to rein in and stop the mass production of victims. We have to look at human trafficking, that it's over $150 billion industry. It makes more money than like Google, Nike, and Starbucks combined, the selling of our children. And they move these children around on circuits, and it's difficult to even contact trace these bacteria, like with COVID, or trace monkeypox, or trace any of this stuff that is coming out there, if they are continuously moving individuals and hurting them and moving them from these stables, which was what they call it when they move these minor victims and things around. And they're not going to disclose on any questionnaire that they have just, bought sex with a 12-year-old and then went home to their wife and their own children. So, and this is the nature of the world the reality of the world we live in. It is dark. I apologize. I don't want it to be offensive, but this is the world that we live in, and we have to open our eyes and see it. And we have to act now. And we are able and poised and ready with Nurses United Against Human Trafficking, with Lynn's Warriors. We are ready to move forward and help you tackle this.
Yes.
I am a subject matter expert. I've been retained as an expert witness in human trafficking cases. And we're just ready. We're boots on the ground, ready to go to assist you and your organization in the healthcare sector to move. It's time to move. It's time to act and let our words, our actions mirror our words.
Thank you, Tammy. Dr. Fran, final thoughts. What would you like to add?
Absolutely. And I just want to really reiterate what Tammy said. We are here to help. We are here. We are just so motivated and so dedicated to eradicating these heinous acts of human trafficking. And so whatever the needs are in your healthcare system, Tammy, of course, can work one-on-one with survivors of human trafficking, on her ranch, or even virtually, that she does offer that. But Nurses United Against Human Trafficking, we are here as a professional association to provide resources, to educate, to get those policies and protocols in place, to help you integrate different responses with local law enforcement, with Homeland Security. You just need to reach out to us. We want to help you. We want to empower you. We want to educate. And that's actually our slogan is educate, equip, and empower. And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. We are eager to help, and we just need to get this information out there. We just need to disseminate it so widespread that everyone can recognize those red flags and just be able to literally get that cascade going that can get services in place, law enforcement called. And it's just a matter of having that recognition. That's really what it's boiling down to, especially with those healthcare professionals. We can escalate it. We just need you to escalate it, I should say. You just need to recognize those red flags, those signs and symptoms. Something just isn't sitting right. And so it's
take action.
That's right.
And
that's
Nurses United Against Human Trafficking warriors watching and listening to this gives you so much great information, free information, and also their workshops. You have no excuses. So Tammy Toney-Butler, Dr. Fran Bono Neri, I thank you both for joining the Warriors today. I feel like things are going to start changing. I feel it. I'm feeling good about it because especially with you two at the helm, with Nurses United Against Human Trafficking, we're going to make this happen. You are both warriors, and I will have all of your information in the body of this video so people can click on and learn more and get a hold of you. So thank you. It's a complete honor to speak with both of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. And thank you for being an ally for Nurses United Against Human Trafficking. We definitely appreciate it, and we appreciate all of your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.